Okay, we're recording, and I thought I'd get started this morning by sharing my screen and some resources for reports that I find useful. And while I'm doing that, please feel free to unmute, chime in, ask questions, and then after I just show these resources I find useful, then I'd love to just throw it open so people can share reports they find useful, questions about reports, and then of course, absolutely anything and everything. All right, can folks see my screen? Great, great. So this is our staff client, and I'm going to move this window over a little bit. And some resources that I find useful on this, just starting right at the staff client for reports that folks might not realize is that there is a link to the very, very helpful Koha Wiki Reports library right here. And it only says Koha Reports Library, but when you open it up, it's the wiki with reports organized by various areas. And there is under section 3, catalog and bibliographic reports, but so much of this relates to cataloging, like changes to the catalog, deletions, withdrawals, lists of records and items, and quality control, and validation. Catalogers gone wild, one of my favorite topics. But then collection development, and on and on. It is a vast and wonderful resource that I highly encourage people to contribute to as well. And then under used saved, if you have turned the feature on, and I'm also going to show some helpful links for that, under new report, you can get reports from Mana. And here you can search by keyword. I'm just going to put in subject, and reports show up. And again, I highly encourage people to share their reports this way and to put in as very, very complete notes if you can, and complete names so that they will come up when shared. And if you open up from the help link, it will take you into the manual for reports. And scrolling down, the manual talks about how to configure Mana. There is also a really helpful Bywater blog post at bywatersolutions.com, education, Monday Minutes, editing Mana reports, with a tutorial video on Mana and some tips and tricks for minor edits that usually need to be made if you've brought in a report from Mana. And following this and doing it is very easy. I did it with no experience whatsoever on it and found it really, really helpful. There's also some great videos and resources on the koha-US site. If you go to Learn from koha-US, which is generally organized with general helpful sections, and then like Koha is. And under the reports button, there's everything from beginner videos, videos on the reports library, using reports from the wiki, adding reports to the wiki, another link there, and some other helpful videos. So these are some resources that I've found super helpful for reports. Let me go ahead and stop sharing. So what sorts of reports do other people have or use or questions about them?
Well, I had a hard time designing a guided report because I always get a blank uh, one line of nothing. I hear that that is not the best interface for writing reports. Uh, I also need to take about 3 days and actually learn it. I'd say there's a lot.
I've had some of the same experience. I've had better luck trying to just do it from SQL, from maybe importing the SQL from something similar and trying to tweak it, and then not being afraid to just go to the main Koha email discussion list and ask questions if I'm having trouble.
Heather, this is Julie. So we are trying to clean up our catalog records, and so we're trying to generate reports that'll help us eliminate duplicate biblios and duplicate titles and things that don't, for some reason, have a subject line, and all manner of different things. So we've been creating a bunch of reports to help us with that.
Those sound really helpful, and I think it would be great if those were shared on the wiki.
Oh yeah, I'd be happy to do that. If I can figure out how to do that. Yes, I will do that.
Yeah, one of the videos on the koha-US Learn site is how to contribute reports to the wiki, and it's
excellent,
pretty straightforward and pretty easy. And yeah, go ahead and ask through our cataloging discussion list for help, or even the main Koha list for help if there are any issues.
Okay, I'll do it.
Oh, we have a question in chat. What is the benefit of having the mana set up? I find the benefit is that it's a lot less clicking and scrolling, that you can just search by keyword, and when something looks good, it's imported directly into your reports interface, and you generally need to just add some strategic carriage returns as is outlined in that Bywater instructional video. And once you kind of learn how to do that, you kind of get it. So it's pretty streamlined versus looking on the Koha Reports wiki, copying the whole thing, pasting it into SQL. I don't know, are other people using Mana?
I've used it some. I think the having to tweak the spacing and everything is a little tedious, but I don't know if there's an active bug on. I haven't looked to see if that will be corrected so that they'll come in more straightforward. But I haven't gotten real used to it. But there's a lot there.
Yeah, for a relatively new resource, it's got a lot of reports in there already.
To be honest, I haven't looked at it yet because I've not see any mention of what it is.
Mhm.
So perhaps some
Ah.
publicity on that end would be helpful, especially those of us who are already up to our knees in the swamp.
That's true. Trying to carve out time away from the normal cataloging workflow to learn a whole new concept is, yeah. The Bywater video on that Bywater site that I linked to, it is a nice introduction also to what it is and an overview. So yeah, thank you, Jennifer, for your comment about Mana being helpful for staff who want to run reports but have limited or no knowledge of SQL. That's kind of me. I'm an SQL super newbie, right? One report that I put together, and I think I've shared it on the Koha wiki, but I'm not sure. I will double check. Is a project that one of my volunteers remotely to find all of our fiction and poetry that lack any sort of subject headings or genre headings. And I got this report together, and what she's doing now is going through those records and then adding genre headings, subject headings, and some cases the 520 summary notes to also add some description to enhance keyword access for those. And that's been a very rewarding project according to our reference librarian. Our reference librarian says she's finding a lot more resources that way.
Sorry, my mind is sort of like Teflon this morning. And you probably said this, but how do you find these things without the hooks to find them? You see what I mean?
Yeah, I can show the report for these finding these records that lack subject headings. I'll share my screen again.
Hey, Heather, I'm on a
Yeah.
phone because I can't do Zoom at work, so just talk about it too,
Oh,
okay?
I
Yeah,
will.
sorry.
I'll be sure to. Thank you for the reminder. I appreciate that.
No, sorry, I don't know why they won't let me Zoom at work. So when
Oh,
I'm
no.
working from home, I can do it, but when I'm actually at work, I can't.
I totally get that. We have some big Zoom restrictions now as well. And that's one reason I'm grateful for koha-US providing the Zoom room for this. Otherwise, it would be really difficult.
Yeah.
So I'll talk my way through this. In my reports area on the staff client, I have organized them into subgroups. So I have a subgroup under catalog, and the report, I'm scrolling down and looking for it. Organizing reports is another challenge. I mean, here we are, we're catalogers, we organize knowledge, but I've found that I am often very, very lax at adding enough descriptors so that I can find my own things.
I feel you.
Yeah, so here we go. I called it bibs without subjects. My note shows all bibs without subject headings. I got the report from Mana. I tried to put in where I got the report, and then I edited it to include, for example, 690. We had a lot of old records that had local headings tag with a mark tag 690. And then our local headings changed in our cataloging so that we used a 650 with the second indicator of 4 to indicate weirdo local headings from old cataloging. So let me run that report. just going to make sure it still works. Yes, it still works. It retrieves bib numbers that are hyperlinked. And I did that so that my volunteer could then just click through, and get the appropriate bib. And then the idea is, as she adds 6XX fields, they don't show up in the report anymore. So this shows that the number of results are down to 166. She's been doing a lot of work on it. So I'm going to go ahead and show the SQL. And it's a fairly long report. It it selects, or let's see, yeah, it selects the mark tags as sub 1, sub 2, sub 3. I'm going to make sure to share this report on the wiki, and I'll try to do that before the recording goes up so that then I can include a link to it in the, so people can find it on the wiki and take a look at it after the meeting. And then it says where sub 1, sub 2, et cetera, equals emptiness between quotes. So I think that that's the trick that means that tells the report, look at these mark fields and are they empty? Therefore, there's no data in all these mark fields, and give me those bib records.
Question from the confused. What are the sub 2, sub 3, sub 4? What is that doing? Is that created for the report, or is it a mark field, or?
That is strictly for the report.
Okay.
Yeah, the mark fields are in these extract value lines. Data field tag 651, tag 600, tag 610, tag 611. And these are all the 6XX mark tags that I knew about, because my data and my records, especially my old records, are really messy. And then for the report, it's given a little new value, sub 1, sub 2. You can call it anything. You could call it Felicia 1, Felicia 2, John Smith 1, John Smith 2. And then it's my understanding that you then tell the report to then look at those areas and tell me if they're empty.
So what those are in SQLery is
Yay,
aliases.
Jason's here. Thank you, Jason.
So basically all you're doing is saying that chunk of code, call it by this name, so that when I reference it later, I don't have to type out that chunk of code again.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And thank you for SQLery. I'll write that one down.
And I did
Oh,
put the
great.
link in the chat for that one. It's the unedited version, so it doesn't have the 690 in there, but it is already in the wiki, it looks like.
Fantastic. And I really like that report. I took a lot of time to get that report together because I figured that report then could be easily modified for any area that you want to see if it lacks a particular mark field or particular group of mark fields.
I think there's one where look for records that have the 650 of this, whatever this is.
Yes. Yeah, there's a report that I got from the wiki that is really handy, that it lets you even put in, like, I'm looking for records that have this string of data in a subject heading.
I'm thinking of a long-term project I really don't want to do.
Yeah, I've been trying to clean up our wacky local subject headings, and that sort of report that lets me put in a particular string in different records has been super handy for that, to then generate a clickable list of the records. I haven't found that I'm finding enough of them to really explore the batch editing options on bibliographic records, because I'm finding, say, 10, 8. Yeah, let's see if I can find that report on the wiki. Yeah, here we go. Bibs with specific keywords in subjects. I'll put the link in the chat. And that is a very short report that's looking in the 650 subfield A tag, but that is really easy to modify than for any other mark field and subfield that you'd like. So I think that that report has usefulness beyond subject headings. It's another really good one.
Yeah, I can really see the potential advantage for common cataloger miskeyings, the typos.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
You know,
Totally.
untied states.
Yeah. I do so many inadvertent Californias.
Fiction.
Yeah,
And
if
if
only we could hook up a spell checker to this.
I don't know. I've seen spell checkers do weird things. But not making the autocorrect.
Yeah, no, autocorrect is not something I'm a fan of.
No, I have a friend that calls it auto cucumber.
Yeah. I can screw up all by myself. I don't need power tools for that.
Yeah. I guess we could do sort of a fuzzy match. When my library school university catalog was doing a lot of cleanup. As you could figure out when you put in Shakespeare.
Yeah, a lot of times I've found that, you know, there are E's getting left out of Shakespeare, or we have books from a special history publisher located here where I live in Berkeley, and Berkeley has a lot of E's in it that often get left out too. That's another common typo to look for.
And according to Bill Bryson in his book about Shakespeare, none of the accepted spellings of his name are the one he actually used.
Heather, was I right in seeing your report that it's dynamic?
Yes.
Yeah, so when people change the record that then qualified for the report, it disappears off the report list.
Yes, since that report is only looking for records that completely lack subject headings, that lack data in any 6XX field, once a record has data in the 6XX field, it will no longer be retrieved by the report.
So how do you export, if you want to retain that data, how do you export it? If you wanted to be, say, reporting on how much work your assistant had done, I'm not just using that as an example, you know, and you could say, look, she started with 1,600 of these and now we're down to 425. Is there a process where you can export that original report?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, the Koha capability to, when the report is run, to either send it to the screen, still in the reports area, or to export it in various spreadsheets format is very, very useful. And I can go ahead and show that. I can export that report. So let me share my screen again, and I will try to remember to talk this through for the folks on the phone.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm really sorry if everyone else already knows this. We're very, very
Oh.
new with Koha.
No.
Koha has so many features that even those of us who have been working with it for years, there's undiscovered gems of resources. So I always appreciate when people go over something that might be very basic, because it's probably something I haven't seen yet.
Also, let me get up in my soapbox while you're getting ready. That's why we're here. We're here to teach people new stuff. I migrated our library in 2013 by myself. You know how much stuff I don't know? Almost all of it.
Yeah. So let me go again. I'm in my saved reports area. I find the report, and then there, right next to the run button, is a little arrow button. I believe, see, this exporting it is something that I don't do very often, so it's good for me to review this. So I'm going to go ahead and run the report again. And then after I run the report, there's a download button, and it offers the choices semicolon separated text, which is a .csv file, tab separated text, or also as an open document spreadsheet. So I'm going to go ahead and do CSV. And it says open with Excel. I go ahead and do that. And there are my report results as textual links. I could then play around with it to make these clickable, or the other formats to make them clickable. And this I find really handy for a lot of the situations that Anne has talked about, where I would like to do some work and then perhaps change this into a report to share at my work about the work we're doing, or the data, or how many records, or that sort of thing. Or I'm preparing some work. I have volunteers that don't have access to the reports module, that for whatever reason, their level of access, and I'd like them to do some work on records. I'll try to prepare, say, a clickable spreadsheet for them. I can just share the spreadsheet and then off they go. I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen there. So does anyone have any other questions or comments? Oh, hello, Bruce is sharing his beautiful kitty. Meep?
Meep.
Oh.
I can see why.
Yes, it's lovely of her to come to participate. I'm sure she helps your cataloging.
Now she wants to get some bacon out of the big white bacon box in the kitchen. Sorry.
Hey, Heather.
Oh, no. Uh-huh.
can I ask, I think I came in a little bit late. So when we generate the reports, I'm not sure that they have clickable links. Is there a trick to getting it to have a clickable link? Because I would also like to have our interns working on cataloging projects and they don't have access to the reports.
I might ask Jason if he would mind chiming in about how to do that. It's something that I've simply copied and pasted.
And
It's
that's what I would recommend. The easiest way to build your links in a report is to copy it from another report. There is.
Okay, so I'll go in. I'll go copy yours, Heather. That's fine.
Yeah, it's what it is a concatenate statement. So it's taking a bunch of little chunks of stuff and putting them together and then inserting the different fields where they need to go. So like when you look at a URL in Koha, if you're on a bib or something, it'll have the bib number at the end. So you need to take that chunk of the URL, then insert the data from the report into the URL. So yeah, my recommendation would be just to copy. There is a there's information about this on the wiki, and I'll post that in the chat so you can read that when the chat gets posted.
I can't read it, Jason, because I'm on the phone, but I'll find it in the wiki. Thanks.
Yeah, so it's just at the top of the wiki. There's some different information there about different things you can put into your reports, and there's a big section on links and how to put those together.
Wonderful.
And more importantly, that big section of links has examples that you can just copy and paste.
Great, thank you so much.
And everything that's in our chat today will be in the comments below the YouTube recording. So people can get all those. If you can't access the chat today because you're on the phone, you can go to the recording of our meeting and then on YouTube and then open up the comments or description below the recording and all the links will be in there.
Got it, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Well, any other questions, comments about anything Koha related, cataloging related, cataloging adjacent?
I have a lists question. So when you create a list, to export it, you, wait, let me go through this process. So I have a list that's private, and if I right click on it, I can download it, but it only lets me, it gives me 4 choices for how to download it: ISO 2709, RIS, BibTeX, none of which I have, and then CSV. But when I download it as a CSV, it lumps absolutely everything into the first column, the call number column, and I can click on that column and do order it to, you know, text to columns, but then it's doing weird things to it's splitting the call numbers, so it's just wonky, and then I have to go in and fuss in Excel to try to fix that. Does anyone have any helpful suggestions about that?
Maybe. I've been doing a lot of stuff like that. But if anyone has the perfect answer, I yield.
I'm okay with non-perfect answers.
My solution would be a report for sure. But go ahead, Fred.
Instead of creating a list, create a report.
When you're opening the CSV, are you doing it straight from Koha, or do you save it and then import it using data, the import text function?
Let's see. It downloads and then I just open it. Should I do something other than that?
Try downloading it with .csv and then starting up Excel, go into data, and say import text, CSV, etc. See what that does.
Yeah, that's not working for me for some reason.
Would you be willing to email me a?
Sure.
Okay. I'm sure I want my email recorded. Wait, hold on until after the meeting's over and we can chat for a moment if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. Who is this, by the way?
Oh, Fred King, Washington Hospital Center. And where are you?
Thanks, Fred. I appreciate it. I'm Julie Robbins from the Municipal Library in New York City.
I saw from New York. I was thinking maybe New York Academy of Medicine. So I've harvested a lot of their records.
Yeah, they have great material.
Anyway, I can tell you what I'm working on, but it's really obscure. But Jason,
Yeah, just to elaborate on what I was saying, what I do is we build the lists, but then you can use reports to query the lists. So the table that information is in is the virtual shelves table. And there is a pretty basic report on the wiki called lists content that you can look at. And basically what that's doing is it's saying extract all the data from that list and give me a list of titles and authors from that list.
Okay.
Okay. And then you can take that report and expand it as far as you want it to go. So if you want to add call numbers, barcodes, that kind of thing, you can do that, and it lets you export it cleanly, I guess.
Right. Right. It also, when I'm splitting out the CSV file, if it would let me put in a double comma, because it seems to split by double comma, not just by comma. So it adds a column. If there are two commas, it adds an empty column. It's weird. Anyway, I'll work on this.
I would take a look at the report for sure. That's been my solution. It also lets you like tweak it more. We're in a consortium, so I have libraries that want the contents of the list, but they only want to see the items that they own. So you can put a filter on it to say only home branch is only this and that kind of thing. So it gives you a lot more control over how the data looks when you finally pull it out. But it still lets them build the list and use the list functionality that way.
Right, thanks.
We also have a question in the chat from Bruce about how are illustrations, plates, and photographs distinguished, for example, in the 008 field. And that generally is something that's defined by your cataloging rules, say in RDA or AACR2, etc. Generally, the illustrations are any illustrations. There are illustrations in this item. So that's why there's usually the illustrations comes first, and then you have the what, calling out some special types of illustrations. And plates are any leaves or pages that are inserted but are not part of the regular pagination sequence.
Right.
So plates are often counted with the pagination in the 300. So for example, you'd have 271 pages, comma, 12 leaves of plates. So that would be a plate. Photographs are often incorrect in MARC records. Photographs are actual photographs. So someone has taken actual photographic prints or negatives and applied them into the volume.
That makes better sense.
Yeah,
so plates and photographs are similar in that they're tipped in.
Right. Or plates may be bound in, but they're not paginated in the sequence.
Okay. That gives me the vocabulary to think about this more intelligently.
If it's just a photograph printed in the book, that's nothing to worry about. Doesn't have its own designation.
It occurs very rarely that someone has taken actual photographic prints and put them into the book or the volume.
We've got books like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think I do too.
Yeah, we do too. It happens oftentimes with special scientific reports
or 19th century too.
Exactly. Limited 19th century editions will often have actual photographs put in. We have them occurring on, say, a limited number. Someone's done 6 identical copies of a historic report, or report on architecture or something like that, and they've just taken a bunch of photographic prints and put them in. And it's good to know because those volumes oftentimes require special preservation treatments.
Yeah, but that would be a photograph then rather than a facsimile.
Right. A facsimile is anytime somebody is showing what the original looked like. Most oftentimes the illustration is, say, a letter or a page from a journal, or there's a sequence in the book showing you some of the original, say, the original voyage journal, and then this is, or diary, and then this is the rest of the volume transcribes it.
The
That sort
facsimile
of
may be an illustration or a plate or a photograph, depending. Got it.
Exactly.
So this is
where
getting
it
even
gets
more
fun.
obscure. Let's say it's a book, a biography, and there's a section of not actually photographs, but they're probably printed in 4-color, and bound into a separate, not separate signature, I believe, but just one section that's nothing but pictures.
Yeah.
What would that be? Be photograph, or is it?
Well, it would be a photograph because that would be they were printed.
It could be a separate section of plates.
Yeah,
It could
be plates.
They might be plates.
Unpaginated.
They might actually be photographs, because photographs is more describing the process of the reproduction of these illustrations. They might be lithographs. They might be portraits. They might be maps.
As long as they're not old Polaroids.
They might be old Polaroids. And sometimes it's so weird that it's just easy to put illustrations in the 300 and put in a 500 note and then still put the codes in your 008 field. We have another question about, is it best practice to have a 520 with the subfield C provided by publisher? I like, if I'm quoting something in my 520 summary or abstract note, I like to always put the source, especially if it's something that I've gotten from the publisher, because I think that alerts the user that this is possibly for promotion and sales purposes if it's provided by the publisher.
However, I don't think there's any requirement or international convention that it has to be in a C subfield.
Right, that's very seldom used. Sometimes I'll even use multiple 520s because I've found some information from somewhere, sometimes provided by the publisher, that's useful, but I want to say maybe something else shorter. So I'll do my own very short, like 1-line summary note and put that first, and then put the more extensive descriptions.
Great, thank you so much. Yes, because I see some records with the subfield C, some without, and I always do it without, but thank you. That clarifies that it's not required. With the quote, definitely put the source. Thank you.
Oh, of course. I'm clicking over to the MARC format. Yeah, I have to say, I have found a subfield C already in the records maybe once, and I have not added it. I've taken that information as is. The subfield B in the 520 field is something that I've used. The subfield B is expansion of the brief summary recorded in the subfield A. And I do try to use that if all in one fairly short field, I have a brief statement and then I'm going to do something longer. For example, 520 subfield A, journal kept aboard the ship Margaret going around Cape Horn, period, subfield B. The journal started on this date when they departed this port, blah, 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 blah. So does anyone have anything else they'd like to chime in with this morning?
I put in the chat 2 bugs that have been pushed to master for 2011. One has to do with diacritics in Z39 servers, and the other one has to do with sorting the servers either alphabetically or by ranking. And this is when you're actually in the advanced editor and you go and search a Z39 server. When they come up that way, they're currently displayed in the order that you created the server. And so this will help with that. It doesn't affect when you're just doing a Z39 new record because those are currently sorted correctly.
Those look
I'd
like
love to see
great.
a list of Z39 servers designated by what type of material you would be most likely to find.
I had this like late night dream that we should like somehow get Z targets into mana or mana. Wouldn't that be great if we could like, and then we could have fields for that kind of stuff. Like you could filter out different libraries by type and
That would be fantastic, Jason.
You've
I
got
don't know
much
how
more
to make that
useful
happen.
dreams than I have.
But then we could also share our targets easier too. It would take a lot of work, but
Yeah.
I've been thinking about just writing up a Bugzilla ticket just to see if that is even a possibility.
But that would fit in with my Koa for nothing and a Mark for free project.
Yeah, yes, please, Jason. I would so comment on the usefulness of that because it would be great to have notes like with Mana that we could search so that, say, I would contribute the Z3950 targets that I use for naval history, maritime history, and then also some of them for local history collections, genealogy. It would be so useful.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Is Mana a Koa thing or is it a everybody thing?
It's a separate thing that's integrated into Koha, as far as I understand it. Biblib is the one that manages it.
I put in the chat another bug that I added, and my thought was being able to assign Z39 servers to groups and then be able to search the group. Like if I know places that have good Spanish cataloging, then I could always just go and find that group when I'm needing to work with those records, or maybe it's some kind of AV or large print or something. So go comment on 26836.
There's a lot of high fives and thumbs ups and yes pleases here. Yeah, that would be fantastic.
26836.
Barbara, you put that in the chat to me. You might want to do it publicly.
Yes, it's in the chat.
Yes, but it's only in the private chat to me.
Oh.
Well, here we go. Jason put it to everyone. So yeah, that will also appear in the notes below the YouTube video recording when that goes up. Well, does anyone have anything else they'd like to chime in about?
Well, here's the one I've been threatening you with, which is really boring, but interesting to me. It has to do with the MedStar Authors Catalog. Because what I do is harvest Medline records with MedStar Authors, convert that into MARC, and then upload it to Koha. Well, it takes a while for them to be indexed. So I have another file of sort of an index. So, and I haven't done that for a while, so I ended up with about 500 records that I had to add 650 tags to, and maybe other information. I've got a day trying to figure out, is there an easier way to do this? I ended up changing. The source is 261, abbreviated source 262. Fiscal year is 269, which publication year is 260. So I changed all those to 260Z and then merged them with the new ones, which are 260C, 261A, 262A. So now all I have to do is go through each of the 500 records and see if I need to change anything else, like change the fiscal year or change the 008 field, which I understand is where Koha gets its indexing the year information. So, and I can do that mostly with my keypad and mark edit, and it's not really something that every cataloger would do, but it's really useful for me. You have to add a whole lot of records, and it ends up with a lot of fields we're not using, like all the things, duplicate 260 A, C, and Z. Who cares? It's just taking up a little space, and it's not slowing down the catalog as far as I can tell. So now we ended up with a 245s for each video. I think Mark Edit can take care of that. I found I've been using Mark Edit and Notepad and Word and Excel a lot lately.
Yeah, Mark Edit is a very powerful tool.
Yes. I don't know which I need to sit down and actually learn first, SQL or Mark Edit.
Yes.
Why
For
not
that,
both?
I have to sort 500 Koha records.
I put a few more bugs in the chat that maybe some people would be interested in commenting on.
Yeah, we have indicate that a record is using OPAC hidden items in staff client, add date published feature to the facets, add date added feature to the facets. Yeah, those look very useful.
Got to keep the cat away from the power cord.
Oh, I wish I didn't understand. Even worse, my cat likes to turn off my CPAP.
Well, we have just a couple minutes left. Does anyone else have anything?
Yeah, well, I've got something to brag on. I bagged a collection development grant for next year that should quadruple the number of books we can get.
That's wonderful, Bruce. Yay!
The way it's structured is the heads of our 5 subject areas are obliged to select the books, and If they don't, their money goes to somebody else next year. So perhaps this will be a good way to motivate them to actually participate.
Yes.
Heaven knows nothing else has worked.
And if they don't give you a list, then can you spend all the money?
Say again, Fred?
And if they don't give you a list, can you spend all the money for the books you want?
One never really knows. We don't have a good auditing system here. Well, considering the board's only given me a few $100s a year, I've been mostly collecting books at the Friends of the Library sales. Pretty good bang for the buck, but not the best possible assortment, and very difficult to pick up recent things that we could review in the magazine.
Well, that's great news. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now on that really high note.